Good morning and welcome to Light Reflections from First Friends. We are glad you have chosen to join us for this virtual worship service and hope you find it beneficial to your spiritual journey. We consider this an abbreviated version of our in-person meeting for worship for those wishing to join us from a distance. If this is your first time joining us, First Friends is a thriving, progressive Quaker meeting in the city of Indianapolis, Indiana. We consider ourselves a loving, inclusive, joyous gathering of people seeking to know truth under the leadership of God's Spirit. All are welcome, no matter race, age, cultural background, sexual orientation and identity, marital status, physical and mental ability, family structure, or economic circumstance. Our hope is that through this worship experience, you will discover our faith community is unlike any other, where silent meditation is as important as the spoken word, where we emphasize the importance of one's personal encounter with the divine, and where we seek to support one another as we discover truth together. Now we invite you to center down and enter this virtual worship space with us.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to Light Reflections. Today's scriptures are from 1 John 3, 16 to 18 from the Voice version. We know what true love looks like because of Jesus. He gave his life for us, and he calls us to give our lives for our brothers and sisters. If a person owns the kinds of things we need to make it in the world but refuses to share with those in need, is it even possible that God's love lives in him? My little children, don't just talk about love as an idea or a theory. Make it your true way of life and live in the pattern of gracious love. Well, last week we celebrated Earth Sunday, and close to the end of our time of waiting worship, one of our new attenders, Jen, approached the microphone and shared that if we want to make a difference in our world, it must start with loving and seeing our neighbors. As Quakers who believe everyone is a minister, that anyone can speak out what God is sharing with them during worship, I was deeply ministered to by these words. Throughout the week, as I prepared my message, I could not stop thinking about how foundational loving and seeing our neighbors is to our livelihood and to our growth as a species. Every Monday, I begin my day with doing a review of the weekend, and specifically Sunday's worship. Most of the time I go online and listen to our light reflections from First Friends and allow what God has inspired me to say to speak once again to my condition. But this week, it was Jen's words that seemed to continue to speak between the words of my message, the songs, and prayers. If you read my As Way Opens from this week, which I usually write on Monday as well, I even found Jen's words focusing my thoughts. One of the beauties of a Quaker meeting is that we do not wrap things up nicely and put a bow on them on Sunday morning. Actually, we leave with queries to ponder so we may continue to process and wrestle with what we have heard throughout the week. So on Monday, as I sat down to begin outlining my message, I wrote at the top of the sermon document for this Sunday, "To love and see each other is foundational." Usually after writing down some thoughts from the previous week, I begin to do my research. But before even opening a book or a website, an email appeared in my inbox. I subscribe to several different newsletters that give insights and wisdom from a variety of sources. This email happened to be the latest newsletter from Progressing Spirit, Explorations in Theology, Spirituality, and the News. Usually I would not allow my emails to distract me during sermon prep, but I was nudged by the Spirit to open it. The Progressing Spirit newsletter is set up in question and answer format. A layperson usually poses a question, and then a theologian or philosopher tries their best to answer the question. I quickly went to the opening question posed by a man named Peter. I was a bit shocked by what I read. He asked, "The perfection of nature amazes me, while the imperfection of human beings continues to disappoint me. What will it take for humans to learn the lessons of Jesus? That love is the only way to guarantee the survival of the world and its inhabitants." That was the query I had been trying to find words for all morning. Obviously, I had to read on, and this week the answer was from Reverend Matt Seidrell, a pastor in the Denver area, a visionary, founder of Church of Lost Walls, and co-founder of Seminary of the Wild. Recently, Matt has begun a new venture called Mythic Christ, a mystery school and podcast for awakening mythic imagination and ritual embodiment. Matt captured my sentiments exactly by beginning with, "Great question, Peter." But as he continued answering his question, I sensed a moment of divine connectedness, that underlying all our conversations was a wisdom that we were missing, something I believe Jen was trying to emphasize in Waiting Worship last week. Matt begins by exploring the word love. He says, "Love is a great word. Love as a verb is active, dynamic, inclusive, relational, and vulnerable. I would love to move us away from understanding love as an abstract noun or simply a virtue or emotion toward an ecology of relatedness, like how the systems of the human body work together for life and growth and greater consciousness." Now let's just pause there. That is a beautiful concept, that love is an ecology of relatedness. And what a beautiful metaphor, considering it to be like the human body working together. Another great theologian and philosopher, the Apostle Paul, utilized the human body as the metaphor of love too. But maybe over time we've missed its implications. Matt goes on to specifically show these missed implications by looking at Jesus' love, saying, Jesus' love was not soft. He was not a pushover. He demanded hard things of his disciples. He spoke fiery words to the elites, the upper castes of the Roman world. His love towards others was not sentimental or rescuing, but focused and deliberate. American Christianity has often over-sentimentalized Jesus and his love. From certain praise music to prayers to even the way we address Jesus in our daily lives. If only we took those words we taught our children to sing a little more seriously and actually explored what it meant when we sang, "Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so." What does it really tell us? Well, Matt goes on to explain. He says some languages have dozens of words for love. Jesus spoke of 4 primary types of love, with the whole heart, the soul, the mind, and strength. That is with the center presence of the heart connected to deep emotion and feeling, with the soul's imaginative and visionary faculties, with the heart-centered intellect and one's erotic vitality put into decisive action. Jesus' love was much more than what most people talk about in religious circles today. Actually, most churches are just skimming the surface and never getting to the depths of the love Jesus was getting at. Thus, Jesus brought it closer to home by turning the greatest commandment on us. Matt says, Jesus modeled this fourfold way of loving God from his own wholeness of being. The second command is like the first, loving one's neighbor as oneself. We have all heard that this command is also the injunction to love oneself. It is pretty hard to really love someone else if we don't love ourselves. So yes, we are to love and see our neighbors, but before we can even do that, we have one more important step to take, which I believe may be the hardest in our world today, and that's to love ourselves. Let's be honest, it's hard to see or give love to someone else if we first don't love ourselves. Maybe you and I grew up with not enough acceptance and too much shame, or we clung to our shortcomings and past failures and poor decisions. Maybe we came to minimize the good things about ourselves and our positive qualities because someone put us down or told us we weren't good enough. Maybe it was abuse and we cannot see our true beauty and joy because someone stole it and never gave it back. Or maybe it is simply about lack of respect for who we are because of our sexuality, our gender, our neurodiversity, our age, our health, our financial status, our education. Oh, the list could go on. Maybe depression, anxiety, addiction, illness, or even peer pressure, both youth and adults, is causing us to not love ourselves. Or maybe it's just bullies, people with greater power and more resources who can keep you from growing and learning and rising to the place where you can survive and succeed, all while they gain more power, resources, and wealth. Do you know that most of the people in this room are hurting in some way? Most of us are struggling to love ourselves in some way. Scientists even tell us it's because our brain has a negativity bias. It is part of our evolution because of how we have been treated by those around us. This is why loving and seeing each other, like Jen said last week, truly is foundational. Matt asked a personal query that really had me pondering. He asked, can I love the world as myself? And what would happen if I did? See, most of us come here pulling the wool over each other's eyes, or maybe even putting on airs each Sunday. At one point in our history, First Friends was all about personal status and socioeconomic status. I'm glad I wasn't here then. Quakers are not about status. Throughout history, we refused titles, did not take off our hats for people, spoke plain and wore plain clothing because we believed everyone was equal. No one better or worse, just equal. Matt speaks to this by saying, poet David White gives my favorite definition of sin when he says, humans are the one terrible part of creation privileged to refuse our flowering. By this he means the dark side of self-reflexive consciousness, that is, of choice, is that we have the freedom to choose death rather than life. We have the freedom to live unconsciously or selfishly. It is not just individuals either. It is systems and structures we have created that are hardwired to reward selfish greed and exploitation of Earth itself. While the early Quakers worked hard and suffered greatly to build structures and fight for a livelihood that was conscious, that valued community, integrity, simplicity. Are you getting it? The Quakers intentionally worked to testify and create testimonies so that we could love ourselves and one another better. Simplicity, peace, integrity, community, equality, and sustainability and stewardship were all about loving well. And I believe we need to return to testifying to these things. The world and earth is crying out for them. Well, Matt closes his thoughts with one last important item. He says this, he says, I don't think it is not that we have not learned the lessons of Jesus. It's that we value our own personal comfort and gain over the survival of the world, even beauty and life itself. We are choosing to refuse our flowering. But one thing must be clear. Choice is not fate. until it becomes too late to choose? I think that's the most important query we can ask ourselves today. Do I value my own personal comfort and gain over the survival of the world, even beauty and life itself? Am I choosing to refuse my flowering? Again, thank you, Jen, for listening to the nudging of the Spirit last week. And thank you, Matt, for answering a query honestly so we can love better. I hope we will ponder these thoughts and queries during waiting worship this morning and consider how love is the only guarantee of the survival of the earth and its inhabitants.
Friends all gather round. There's something I would say, that what brings us together has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside, where strangers are as family and loneliness can't hide. You must give yourself to love. If love is what you're after, open up your hearts to the tears and the laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I've walked these mountains in the rain. I've learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like a sunrise on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. You must give yourself to love. If love is what you're after, open up your hearts to the tears and the laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Love is born in fire. It's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you are ready. Love comes when you are afraid. It will be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. You must give yourself to love. If love is what you're after, open up your hearts to the tears and the laughter, and give yourself to love. And give yourself to love.
We close this time of worship with a Quaker prayer. God, open our eyes and unstop our ears, that we may see your light and may hear your heartbeat, reflecting and resounding within our chests, in those of all our neighbors, near and far, in all creatures and plants, and in the ground we walk upon. When we finally are able to yield to the leading of your rhythm and flow, may we come to walk cheerfully over the world, answering that of you in all. Amen. Have a great week, friends.